In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at how we can design interconnected strut lattices, like the type of structure you can see here, where we have one lattice structure in the blue color, and then we have a second lattice structure sort of interpenetrating the first lattice structure and sort of going through the gaps of the two different lattices. So in Gen 3D Sulis here, I've just imported a cube into the center of the base plate. This cube's 50 millimeters in each of the edge lengths, and I'm going to first apply a normal strut lattice structure to this cube. So I'm going to click on the object and click the strut lattice button. I'm going to set the number of cells to be 5 in each of the axes. And I'm going to set the wall thickness to be something, let's just start with 0.6. So the key to this is picking 2 different unit cells for the lattices that will develop this interconnecting shape. So the blue one, we're going to use the Kelvin strut cell. So I'm going to uncheck the edge struts box and I'm going to click the Kelvin struts box. Then I can get a visual preview of this by clicking on the Update Struts button. So next I want to design my second lattice. So to do that, I'm going to click on the lattice on the cube in my project panel. So this is in the models and then cube. And then I'm going to just copy and paste the parameters of this structure. So I'm going to press Control C and Control V. That makes me a copy of my model, and it also copies the problem component that's attached to this, so the lattice structure that's attached to this. So if I flick between these two now, we can see that they're both the same parameters. So what I'm going to do is take one of these, keep the strut thickness and the number of cells the same, but I'm just going to move away from the Kelvin struts, and instead I'm going to add a combination of struts. This case, the face center struts, which will give me the centers, but then I'm also going to add the diagonals to just get slightly more of an interconnecting structure. Now I have these, I'm going to generate both of them at the same time by pressing the generate button. I'm going to generate this on a resolution of 0.2. Should be enough for a 0.5 or 0.6 millimeter strut thickness. So now we can export this lattice out of Gen 3D Sulis as 2 separate bodies. First we'll go to the export panel. We'll check the decimate box to reduce the triangle count, and we'll click the filter particles box just as good practice. And typically now we would just click export volume to file and export this out as an STL or 3MF file. I'm going to instead click create new model so I can bring this back into Gen 3D. And then I'll add some colors to the 2 different lattices so we can just show more clearly or distinguish between the 2 separate interconnecting lattices easier. So as you can see, this has generated 2 separate meshes. We've got mesh 0, which I can click on, and if I right click and go to set color, I can set a color for this mesh. I'll click select color. Then if I click the second mesh, generated mesh 1, right click and I'll set another color. This time I'll move it to red. We can now see that we have 2 interpenetrating, interconnecting lattice structures that we can send to the printer, and these will then be separate bodies that will move separately to one another but still be trapped somewhat between the 2 elements. So an interesting structure that can be designed using Sulis Lattice.